Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we will understand about Control Value Accessor. So we use Control Value Accessor when we want our component to behave as a form control. So I have created a setup. Let's see. I created a module where I have defined a child route where path is CVA, which will load the component approval component. So if we go to that component, we can see I have injected a form builder service and declared a form which contains a form control text, and it is a required control, and the default value is blank. And if you go to the HTML side, we can see we have declared form group to the form, and then the form control is used here, form control name equal to text, and then we have displayed a mat error in case we found the required field error. Also there is a button which is the save button, and this button is disabled when the form is pristine or the form is invalid. So let's have a look into the browser. We can see our form is loaded here. Initially it is blank and the save button is disabled because form is pristine. So let's write something. As soon as we write, the save button is enabled because we have some value and which is valid. And if we delete this text, then this button is disabled because this is a required field. So far so good. Now the requirement changes and it says that we need a signature here as well as this text, and once the signature and text is available, then this save button should be enabled. That means the text and signature are required. So let's see how we have implemented it. So if I go to this approval component.html, let's assume that I am using a component which is provided by third-party library, or we can get it from our team as well, that somebody has created this reusable component and we are just using it here in this component. So we are using this component, and there is an output property which will emit the signature in this $event variable. So let's go to that approval component, and here I am declaring a signature variable, and once we receive the signature from the app signature component, this handler will capture this signature and we will store into our signature. Also we need to make change in button also. So you can see here I will also use this or condition where if the signature is not there, in that case we are going to disable this save button. So let's go back to the browser and check it out whether it is working or not. So if we come here, we can see this is okay. We did a signature and now I am using the text. We can see our button is enabled. So let me remove it. The button is disabled. So let me clear this also and add me some text. So in this case the button is disabled. That means our code is working fine. So what is the problem here? So you can see this is only one component, but suppose there are multiple components here, then in that case we will expose the output property from there. We will get the value from those components, and then we will store those components into our variable, something like that. For example, hand signature receive 1, signature 2, and it can be anything, not only signature. And also we need to make the changes here in our save button. Now this is the precise case where we should use control value accessor. We want our component to behave as a form control. So let's see, we should make the changes. I will remove this field signature from here, and I will add a form control into this component because this component should behave as a form control. And let's remove all those output properties and handler. I will move this component to the form, and in the TS file we will remove all those things from here. I will add one more control which will be the signature control, and value will be blank and it is a required field. So let's save it and look into the browser. Yeah, it is compiled. So if you look at here in the browser, we can see we are getting no value accessor error. Now we can resolve this error by implementing the control value accessor into signature component. So if we look into the diagram, we can see the control value accessor acts as a bridge between the form control and our custom form control or our component, right? So let's see how can we do that. Let's jump into the code. Here we are going to implement this control value accessor. It will expose few methods. Let's implement the interface. So these methods are write value, register on change, and register on touch. So let me cut paste here on the end of the component. Now implement, understand one each and every method. So write value method is called when in the form we assign some value. So here in this signature form control we are assigning some value, and that value will be received via this write value method. So let me declare some variable. I have copied some code, let me keep it here. So just copying this and pasting it here. So initially the value will be null, and whenever we assign the value in the form, so you can see here we are assigning this value and we will get this value using this write value method. Now the second one is register on change. So in this component, in signature component, whenever you make the changes, for example we are done with the signature or we are clearing the signature, in that case we are going to call this function method. So to implement it, I already have written code snippet. Let me paste it here. I have declared a method on change which will accept a value and it will return nothing, and this method is pointing to the function here via this dot change equal to function. So what will happen whenever we make the changes here in this signature component, suppose we are done with the signature, then we are calling this method with the value which will be our signature, and then in turn it is going to call this function which is the argument of this register on change method, and it will update the form control accordingly. It will fire all the validations which are required. And the third method is on touch method. It is a method which will return void, but it doesn't have any argument. So whenever whenever it is touched, we are assigning this function to this the function pointer which is there in register on change, and then when we call this method, it will update the form control. So let's see how can we do that. So the first method is once we are done with the signature, so we do not require all those things here. Let me comment it out. We do not need this output signature as well, signature emitter as well. So here we are done with the signature, and now what we will do, we will call this on change method with this signature. So this dot on change, and the signature is here, and we are going to call it. All right. And the second thing is also once it is done, we are going to call this on touch method as well, because in that case our form will be touched. So I'm calling this method. Also when we clear this thing, we are not going to emit because this is obsolete now. We are going to call this on change method again with the null value, because in this case we are updating it with the null. So this dot on change, we are calling the null value. All right. So and the last thing is here in the providers, we need to tell the Angular that whenever you ask ng value accessor we need to provide this signature component. So here the signature component will work as a form control, because this ng value accessor is behaving as a glue between the component and the form control. So let me save it. Let's have a look in the browser. Let me clear the console. All right, so let me reload the screen. Okay, so first we are writing the text. You can see this is disabled because signature are still need to be done. So when we make this, our button is enabled. And second thing is, when we clear it, everything will be, this save button will be disabled. And of course when we delete the text, this is required field and the save button will be there. So the key takeaway of this session is, whenever we want our component to act as a form control, then we should use the control value accessor, so that we can avoid the problem of emitting the value, exposing the output variable, and we can remove the complexity in the code. So our code will be cleaner. Here you can see that we are using the form, and the another variables are not required. So I hope this control value accessor is pretty clear, and let's meet in the next session. Guys, I have created a video course on Udemy, which is Angular Practicals. It covers many practical problems and solutions in Angular. So if you go through it, there are various sections: basic practical problems and solutions, then RxJS, best practices, code refactoring, design pattern, performance. So right now it is 2.5 hours long, but I am updating it every now and then. So link is provided in the description. I hope you will like it.